What is consciousness? What is mind? How does the mind not deal with the brain? And how could mind not mean function of the brain? Parapsychological studies are very much a study of the mind and of consciousness. It is taking a look at the phenomena that is extraordinary and trying to ascertain what is happening and more so why it's happening. You have people who are making the claim that they are able to see events in the future. And when looking at it from a physicalist perspective, that claim is just incoherent. It would be like saying a person who's driving their car in Los Angeles is having some direct impact on the traffic in New York. So, what is consciousness? According to the physicalist, it's pretty simple. Consciousness is simply the derivative of the functioning of the brain. The brain takes in information, it processes that information, and the result is a subjective experience of personhood. So this consciousness is this emergent result, so far as the physicalists understand it, as function. The idealist looks and says, function is not something that the brain invented. It is something that the brain does. Information is not something that the brain invented. It is something that the brain processes via its functioning. And the fundamental rule set for how the brain goes about processing this information is something that the organ also did not define. The functioning of the brain as it pertains to the internal processes of the body, such as the heart, the lungs, the endocrine system, and the many others, is known as the subconscious mind. It is the brain regulating and bringing into coherence the various internal functionalities of the body. The recognition that there is a specific subject, the body as a whole, in relationship to an external environment is known as the conscious mind. It is the functioning of the brain to take in information in regards to its environment, process that information, and create a relational coherence, essentially a survivability mode for the individual. We call this consciousness. In this process, whether external or internal, we recognize that the relation is fundamental in both cases. The concept of the universal mind is the recognition that fundamentally there is relation, and that relation sets the stage for all of the things in the universe and how they function coherently together. Just as the brain serves as the physiological component that allows the body to work coherently together as an internal system and within an external overall environment. We define the universal mind as the paradigm of interrelation and intelligible coherence pertaining to the possibility, actuality, and unity of all things. Universal mind is the structural paradigm through which relational coherence expresses itself recursively and self-stabilizes across all scales of existence. Therefore, brains do not create mind. They instantiate a local version of the universal coherence paradigm. The universal consciousness is the intrinsic functioning of the universal mind, specifically that of reflexive individuation and correspondence. If the mind is defined as a paradigm of interrelation and intelligible coherence, and consciousness is defined as reflexive individuation and correspondence, then the study of the mind as it pertains to parapsychological research would be an investigation of the paradigm of interrelation and reflexive individuation and the phenomena associated with it. This would lend to phenomena that would be extraordinary given our everyday experiences. It would mean that a person in New York could have a direct correspondence with a person who lived 50 years prior to them being born. It would mean information being retrieved before the activity occurred. It would mean being able to communicate across time, distances, and outside of the normal constraints of what is physicality. Now, I know that this makes a lot of people who are physicalists very uncomfortable. What they see is blah, blah, blah. This guy is talking a lot of woo. This is science fiction nonsense. Being able to speak to a person who hasn't been born yet, being able to communicate across space and time with no intermediary of technology, absolute and complete foolishness. Why don't these people just get done with it and claim that Superman is going to fly out of the sky and worship the spaghetti monster? Totally understand. It means, look, unless there's some grounding to these wild conceptions, you're right, it would just be the babbling of absolute and complete inanity. The interesting thing is, it's not without reasonable, repeatable, and verifiable evidence. That is what the field of parapsychology is doing.